This is Antoinette 70, and I'm trying to air live once again. So, I did a previous video and the sound sounded crazy, so I'm doing it again. Um, but I titled it again because I think this title is actually a little bit better. Taking life for granted. And so this video is just that, about taking life for granted. And I believe that there's a lot of new developments that have been going on, and I think these things are nothing short of being new, really. It's just a lot of old frustrations and anger, a lot of old things that have happened in the past are now revisiting our present times that we're living in. And I noticed there's a lot of anger um, that is starting to well up even more, even in the workplace. I mentioned that I can see the different attitudes with coworkers, how people started to change when there was an election year. And I didn't realize that until 2016, how people's mindset would be on political issues, but even more so, this movement of Me Too. I believe a lot of that has happened to a lot of women because the teaching and the belief system was that men are going to be men. Men can go out and sleep with different women, and they look cool. And if women do that, they look like, a street woman, or they're labeled lower. Um, if you want to keep your job, don't tell, stay silent. It looks more like it's your fault that you asked for it. Maybe it's the way you dress, the way you look. And so a lot of this has gone on for, I don't know how long, for many decades. And the thinking of people is just, and it's not just males that have thought this way. There are women that thought this is the way life is. And that's the reason why women won't report. That's one of the reasons. There's a lot of fear, and women won't report things because they're afraid that they're going to lose their job, they're going to lose their position, or they're afraid to be alone. So they would deal with being in an abusive or potentially lethal and a dangerous relationship, rather than having a sense of self-awareness, a peace of mind, and waiting until someone who is going to treat them with more respect and dignity comes along. They'd rather be in that, abusive relationship, because there's a couple of things going on. It could be children involved. Maybe there's a lot of fear. They've been threatened that if they try to get out of the relationship, that they would be killed, not realizing that they could be killed while there's really more potential of being killed in that relationship. So there's a lot of things going on with that whole movement. And then, so I'm going to jump to several different things, several different topics here. Not only the Me Too thing, there's also there's men that do things that are wrong. There are women out there doing things that are wrong. It's a lot of things going on, and I don't see it really getting any better. There's a lot of anger, a lot of people that feel like they can't trust anyone anymore, that you have to really, really wait to learn an individual. Well, it should have always been like that, but there was a time it seemed like where people were a little bit more, I guess, how do you say, they let their guard down and they were a little more um, accepting or willing to take. Seems like everything, everywhere you look, even the safest places aren't safe anymore. The school shootings, I can recall in the 80s when there was an uptick in gang violence. They had metal detectors put in some of the schools in California and some of the urban areas, Los Angeles, Inglewood, Watts, Compton. Certain schools felt the need because of the surge of the threats of gang violence coming on the school campus. And I had friends who didn't make it to get to the age that I am. They didn't make it to become full grown adults and have children, lead productive lives, or pursue careers, be grandparents because of gang violence. And so that's why I speak so, um, how would I say this? I speak so candid about it because I firsthand know about that whole era when it was really going on in the 80s. Um, and even now, even though it has evolved, it's changed, it's still the same thing. It's still the same pitfalls. It's just you have new people doing it. And, there was a young lady, she was on YouTube, and I was sort of consoling her. Well, at least I thought I was. But I guess she took it personal to a level of no other. And she became enraged instantly. And it just seemed like anger from out of nowhere. And I hadn't said anything that I recall that was negative. A lot of it was positive. A lot of it was, it's just mainly I was agreeing with her. I was saying it was sad that a lot of things that are happening are happening. She immediately went into this full-on rage rant and said, "It's your generation. You're the reason why this stuff is happening." But at it, I'm not the reason, or my generation rather is not the reason, because before we were born, there were some of these issues, as many of these issues were going on way before I was born. So these are issues that seem to be revolving over and over again. They just have new people doing it. And it's just a different generation. And now that we're in this time, it's a repeat of history. Stuff that we've seen in the past seems to always come back around all over again. And I feel like the reason why a lot of this stuff is happening is because of who we got in office and all of the things that are going on. It's just a lot of the frustration is just coming out. It's like when you sweep something under the rug and you try to hide it for a long time, the rug is flat in the beginning, but then it starts to have lumps as it goes along, and then bumps, and then the bumps and lumps turn into little mounds, and then the mounds turn into hills. And that's the way this world seems to be, where people will ignore tragedy, they'll ignore a situation for so long, or a crazy event will happen, and then when it fades off, and when all of the hysteria about that event is over with, and then they move on to something else, it's like they forget, and then it repeats itself, and it's like a revolving door. It just seems to never end. And so these issues are not something that you can just blame on any one particular individual. These issues have been here, and they tend to repeat themselves, I noticed. Um, I feel like people take life for granted. Like some of the safest places that we thought, churches, schools, hospitals, there's shootings, or you hear about people, violence. Um, Schools, you got kids fighting other kids, hurting, shooting other students. It's just a lot of things. It's not like it hasn't happened before, but when it goes away and then nobody's talking about it, people are hoping, oh, it won't happen again. But then as some years goes by, something happens and then it reoccurs. And I feel like since we've got the social media, like when we were kids, but there was a way, we would deal with the bully, ignore them. Some people would even defend themselves. And after a while it would go away. Eventually you'd either become friends, or you'd see, you don't see eye to eye, you go your separate ways, but then it was over. But now you got social media where kids can post things about you, and it just, pictures, do evil things. It can stay there forever, it seems like. And you never forget those things. It's just on social media. And they can hound you about it and harass you about it. And we, unfortunately, the way this time era is, we didn't go through that. And your generation of teenagers and young people are going through that, and it's unfortunate. And that could be a promoter as to why some kids feel more depressed when they get bullied. And we've been seeing that kids that are taking their lives. And that is something that, you know, that I feel like has sort of been like a little uptick, unfortunately, in this generation. Also the anger between, males and females, just everybody, it just seems like it just is all coming to a head, a clash, like a collision, and it just doesn't stop, like a train wreck. And that is the times that we're living in. It just doesn't seem to get any closure on any issues. And it's like an explosion of anger, and in a volcano, and it's welling up and it's waiting to erupt, and it's there. It's just all these issues, and eventually it erupts. And the younger people tend to, they fight against whatever it is, or they're in the thick of it. And then the older people are also fighting against whatever it is, or they're in the middle of something, or they themselves are being victimized for it. And it's sad. So I noticed the change in even coworkers, like ever since that November election in 2016, I noticed the change in coworkers. You just don't feel like you can trust people. And in the Black community, there's this whole movement of conscious people and people trying to talk about all these different issues. Some people have, like, in their heart, they're really trying to find the answers to unresolved questions or things that they've always suspected. They weren't told the truth. There's been a lot of lying. But then there's some people who they know this, but they're using it to take advantage of the people that look like them, to say that they're helping everybody, or they want to help their community, but they really want to profit off their community. And so they're doing more damage rather than good. And then there's some people who aren't humble. They don't want to start doing things small, and they want to take credit for something big and huge, and they want fame, and they want a lot of notoriety and to be put in a history book. And so they're more aiming for that goal rather than just being humble and being kind and trying to do the greater good. It's more about recognition. And some people are in it for ego reasons. And so we've got a lot of that going on. And then women who feel like they are afraid to be alone, so they'll be in an abusive relationship rather than being by themselves and pursuing a career, pursuing goals, and waiting for the time when maybe someone will come around that's respectful. They'd rather be in an abusive relationship because of fear that they threaten that if they get out of the relationship, they're going to get killed, which they have a greater chance of being killed in that relationship if it's a bad one to begin with and abusive, or they just fear being by themselves. They're codependent. And so there's a lot of things going on. I'm seeing um, a lot of craziness, people who are competitive at work, even if they're from the same background. And so I will share this story where there's this one young lady who she's African American, and she I believe this is what happened to her. She probably at one time pursued school and it didn't work out. And whenever she encounters some other African American female that has more education or more schooling or more degrees or whatever, she feels threatened by them. And so she feels like she has to be on the defense and figure out how to get them fired, or she does little things to make them feel uncomfortable being around her. She talks about them behind their back. And so I'm using this as a scenario, but it is really happening. So she feels like she has to be really super bitchy. And instead of her looking at it as a door opener, for her, it's the door has been slammed shut on her. And so she has to be mean and evil. Any female she fears is a threat that has more of something or something that she doesn't possess. And so we've got that going on. If anybody can relate to that, if you've ever had that feeling that that has happened to you, which I've had it happen to me on many occasions, where the person doesn't really know anything about you, they just know of you, or they've looked you up and they found out that you went to school or you have this and that. Okay, I don't brag, but I just think there's some just really, vengeful people. Instead of them getting to learn what other people have had in their life experiences, they've already are set in their ways of how to judge someone. They feel like, oh, well, who is this person? She's went to this school, that school. She thinks she's better than me. And I've had to distance myself, not to be mean, from people who have been mean to me. And I get a lot of that. I have gone through a lot of that in the workplace on many occasions. I've seen a lot, and I've gone through a whole lot, and you wouldn't believe, but I've also seen a lot of violence. Like I told you, I was here in LA in the 1992 riots. I've seen, people getting killed and gunned down in the street. I've seen a lot. I've seen women who they're mad because you looked at a guy and they're ready to cut your throat, over, and the guy probably is not interested in them. I've seen a lot of crazy stuff happen. And, I think people take life for granted. They don't realize that life is short and we don't have a long time here, as so some people would think. You can be here longer if you do it right by avoiding the negative outcomes. There's a lot of negative that is in this world, but I try to avoid it as much as possible. I do say what I gotta say. I'm not perfect. I'm human. Everybody has their flaws, but I try to steer clear of people I feel they could potentially be a hindrance in my life. And I'd rather be alone for the rest of my life than to deal with someone who's going to put me in a position where I'm feeling insecure, unsafe with that individual. And so I don't want that. And I feel like there's a lot of dangerous people, more so than people that are trustworthy. And for that reason, I don't think a lot of these movements are all valid, that they will be movements where people will totally unify. There's going to be a lot of social divide because everybody doesn't necessarily see eye to eye on all issues. I've learned over time to agree to disagree with people and not take things personal. And since, you know, since I will also go in and share this story because I start off mentioning about the Me Too thing. I know there's some people that are jumping on the bandwagon about that. There are some people that are using that as a platform, and they really, are just trying to, see how they can get paid. There's some people like that, believe it or not. But outside of those people, there are women who have been victimized. And I'm going to share, I guess this is my Me Too thing. Well, when I started this one place of employment, there was this guy and I was talking to him, and it was more like a friendly situation. It wasn't a trying to get to know you, trying to go out to, date you kind of friend thing. It was more like, hi, how are you? Seemed cool, about the place. You've been working here longer. Maybe you can tell me some things. So we exchanged numbers. And so immediately I started getting these text messages, and they were from porn sites. And then I started getting messages offering, wanting me to meet this person somewhere for, sexual favors. So when I turned this person down, they got angry. And then from that point on, while I was working where I'm working and still working, they would make it a point to try to always be in my face, or they would say things to the other employees so that they won't like me. They even had one of the persons, saying, making hints, throwing hints in their conversation. I don't like tattletales, or I don't like people who lie. And it's crazy because there are women who, if if a woman is going through something, or she's been abused, or somebody's tried to do something they shouldn't be doing, and there are other women who in the situation, they're on the outside and they don't even know what happened. They just automatically assume, because that person, they know the abuser and they've known him for X amount of years, and that, oh, he's got to be telling the truth. You, the new one, you're a liar. And so this is why women won't come forward and say what's going on, because they're in fear they're going to get fired, or in fear there's going to be retaliation, because you don't know who that abuser probably has been working there for a long time. He's been allowed to do what he's been doing. He's probably done it to other women and gotten away with it. And so if he comes along and he meets some woman that comes along and doesn't take them up on the offer, they get mad and they want to figure out how to get her fired, or they want to figure out how to make her life a living hell. And so I have been through that. I'm actually still kind of going through it. It's not as horrendous as it was the year that I reported him. And yeah, I did report him, but anonymously, but nothing was done about it. I don't really think he got the warning he should have got. He should have got fired for what he was doing. He actually, there were more to the story. He actually confessed that he was married and he wanted me to come meet him somewhere and fool around. And I told him no, that I wasn't interested. And so he got mad at me. And every time I would be outside or I'd be somewhere, he was always trying to be there. And he would, make snicker or make some little face gesture, or he, you know. And so and this was, I say, 3 years ago. And so going on, so it's just crazy. I know that I'm not going to always be there forever, but I've been dealing with it. And no matter what you do, people are not going to believe you. They think, oh, it's because of the way you're dressed, or maybe you did something, it's your fault, and, the woman is blamed. So I know how that feels. So some women do go through that, and they do experience where they're afraid to come out, and it may take years before they come forward and say. And then you got some women who do come forward and say, but nobody does anything about it. They brush it off like it's not important. And so I was waiting for when this person was going to do this to someone else, and he did. But this woman didn't report it. And I'm going to tell you what he did is, this girl was younger. She didn't stay 6 months. And he would make her look at me funny because I didn't want to, lay around with him and mess with him, because I knew something wasn't right about him anyway. I wasn't interested, and it wasn't somebody I wasn't attracted to him, like that, And so, and I don't even know why he got so mad, because I didn't know him, for him to be getting that angry like that. It wasn't like, it just didn't make any sense. So I knew something was, I think he's kind of crazy. So I don't even know how he stayed there as long as he has. I think he's good at lying and hiding. And so he met some other one shortly thereafter when I turned him down on his crazy offer. And I think he actually, this one, she's young, and I think she went ahead and took him up on the offer. And shortly thereafter, she would run to the bathroom, she'd start crying, and she was doing a lot of coughing. And I'm assuming that he may have given her an STD or something. And I would see a lot of eye rolling between them, like they hated each other's guts thereafter. In the beginning, they were talking and everything. It looked like something was going on. But then after, a couple of weeks of that, then she gave him the most evil look. And I knew eventually she wasn't going to be working there for too long. And so she eventually quit. She stopped working there. And I know he had a lot to do with that. And so, but me, I never let him get close to me like that. And so what I didn't like is that she didn't come forward and report him. Had she had have reported him, and I had reported him before her, it would have made my situation seem more valid. That, yeah, this guy, he has a history of being predatory towards women, you know. And so by her not reporting it, now it's left like it's just I'm the only one that's dealt with something. And he hasn't found another victim yet that is bold enough to report this behavior in him. And I believe the reason why he feels comfortable being this way is because he's been allowed to get away with stuff, and he's done it before. And also, I'm not just going to say it's just him. There have been some women that she took him up on the offer, and ended up getting burned. And she didn't report him. So she wouldn't feel comfortable reporting him because she probably feels like if she reports him, he's just going to throw up the fact, well, you came to me wanting to sleep with me, so he could always throw that up in her face, or he could lie, or he could threaten her and say that his wife is coming to the place to, be with him to validate that he wasn't there that night, whatever. There's always something. So I can attest to what some of those women are saying, that it is true. There are women that are afraid. They will hide it for years. Abuse, things they're going through, because they're afraid that their voices are not going to be heard, that they're not going to be taken serious. Like even now, like the next person that came into the workplace to take over the position where the other person once was, that took the report that I had gave them about this individual. She did the same thing. And this was a woman. She did the same. Well, you said he did this and this. She totally did not believe anything that I said to her. And it was almost like she didn't believe me. And like I made it up. And so I've been dealing with this for the longest time, and I think it's harder because I never actually got burned. I didn't sleep with a guy. So I don't have any proof to say, oh, well, look what he gave me. He gave me a disease or something, or I'm pregnant or anything. None of that happened. So I don't have any really proof. The only thing I did have at the time, it was he had put these things on my cell phone, these text messages. And one of the persons that was the interviewer over the whole thing, he said, well, let me see your phone with the text message. And so I showed him. And he says, well, that is, he said, the only thing that I do know that sounds like it's this person really did something is what you said, where he had more than one job, that he had mentioned another place where he worked. And he asked me, well, where's the other place he said he worked? And I was able to say it, where he claimed he wanted me to go do the hanky panky. And so he said that part right there, that's where he believed me, that I wasn't fabricating anything. But nothing still was done about it. I guess because he didn't get close enough to me to actually do any real damage. So I don't know. It's sad that all these things are happening. I don't know. That's why I feel like, being able to wake up, to see another day, to pursue career, to, attend to my goals, to do things, just to have peace of mind, to rest, to have weekends, to relax. Those things I love. And I think some people take those things for granted. I'd rather have that than to be in an abusive relationship, than to be, always fighting with someone, always in opposition. I see all this fighting, even on the internet, over political issues, which that's probably never really going to stop. To the magnitude to where some people don't even really realize it. You're not going to make everybody see eye to eye. I realize that, unfortunately, not everybody's going to agree. I have sense enough to know that everybody is going to see things differently. But sometimes it frustrates me. There's some things that seem so simple and clear cut that you're like, how come you can't see this? It is frustrating. It's like, like the one person where they say that they want to start an organization and they want to help, Black children. And, then they don't want to start off small. They want the fame and the notoriety and the credibility and, everybody pointing fingers. Oh, see what so-and-so started. I think it's more about helping people rather than egos and, name recognition. And some people are into that. They want to be seen, they want to be noticed, they want to be popular, they want their name in history books. They have ulterior motives, agendas that aren't necessarily about for the greater good of helping people. It's more about helping themselves, And I'm not on board with a lot of the stuff that people are doing. So I guess I've grown a bit recluse for a valid reason. I was here in LA during the 1992 riots, and I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of violence. I've seen a lot of shift in the decades. These things that are happening seem like a repeat of history from what I'm seeing. Even before I was born, I started really looking. There's no excuse for people who have the internet and social media now to not see that you can go back in time, literally, and look back and see that some of these things that we're looking at today has happened already. It's just new people doing it. And the thing with the violence and in schools, it's you think that schools would be safe, and now you find that the school, you have to worry about your babies, what schools they're in. As a parent or an educator, you can research the school's demographics, their budgets. Yeah, I'm sure you can look that up. What the neighborhood, the crime rate, have they done background checks thoroughly on people in terms of, has anything come up about them with children? And that it's like, but it's scary because some of these people that we're hearing that are getting busted for doing things to kids didn't have a prior record. I don't understand. That is a big question mark for me. It's like, wasn't there something in their history that showed they had a history of being predatory to children? So I that just right there, and it's, I was reading about that, the pedophilia, how a lot of times they'll live close to a school, or they'll take jobs where it's around potential victims. If it's like being a host at Chuck E. Cheese, or working in an educational environment around children or teenagers. And they usually tend to take jobs like that. Um, and not for the purpose because they're just, good at teaching. It's more like, or working with youth, it's more for other purposes that aren't good at all. And so I thought that was really disturbing. I read about, that kind of stuff, and I'm like, I don't even want to, read anymore. But it does teach you a lot. They'll even live in neighborhoods where they think there's a lot of kids playing outside and they're unattended. And so you have to really watch. And, the teenagers now, there's a lot of violence. They're exposed to more video games, TV, movies, everywhere. It's everywhere. And social media, it's sad because when we were kids, you had bullies, and, you'd either, you'd handle it and it would go away, you become friends, or, you avoid those bullies, and then you grow up, you mature, and then you laugh about it later. But now you've got social media, people bully you online, and it stays there forever, and you can never get away from it. And your pictures are posted, people are immature, they're, causing young people to want to make decisions of killing themselves. And it's sad. It's really sad that you have young people who are taking their lives because they fear that they're going to be bullied, or they fear that they're not cool enough, or they're not accepted for who they are. And so there's a lot of craziness going on, and I just never, I don't know. I just shake my head to a lot of this stuff. I never thought it would get this bad, but then, it just seems like a violent, even more volatile time, and it's internet savvy. You know, you have all these new things going on that, you know, even the criminal tech savvy, and it's like a lot of stuff is happening. So, you know, I'm just thankful to see another day, to be able to relax, to be able to unwind, to be able to live, to, you know, some of the little things, some of the things that people take for granted, to be able to take a walk, to be able to like breathe air. You know, you could have pre-existing health issues. There's so many things going on. You're just happy to see another day. It is. It's crazy, but it despite all of what's going on, it has not stopped me from wanting to pursue the things that I want to pursue in my life, and to go on and be productive, um, with all of the things that are happening. It's actually made me a more mature, stronger individual. I haven't really wanted to, you know, chase people. You know how people get into that chase, let me date this person. I've actually gotten a lot more recluse, more into pursuing, you know, a productive goals rather than being interested in relationships. And I guess some of the crazy stuff that I've seen other people go through, I'm just kind of turned off by it. That's the honest truth. You know, like I'm not really that jazzed about it. You know, some people are in love with the idea of getting married. Not me. Unfortunately, I know I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer on that whole issue. I'm just not into it. I don't want to do it. Really, honestly, I don't want to do it. I don't ever really want to do it. I just, you know, it would be nice to do something if people were good people and they weren't trying to do something underhanded. It wasn't a hidden agenda. And a lot of people, you don't, you know, some people are clever about hiding who they are. You don't really know who they really are. And some people can hide it for a long time. And then as soon as they get married to you, all hell breaks loose. So I just don't want to feel trapped. So that's probably why I haven't done it. That's the honest truth, you know, and I guess because I have experienced it already in my lifetime and it wasn't good. And so I don't want to get in that anymore. And so I like being able to pursue my own goals and to have a good life, and, you know, and to make the best of what, even if I don't have a whole lot, to make the best of what I have. So, you know, some people do, they take life for granted, and some of the little things they take for granted, just being able to have freedom of yourself, you know, and not feel bogged down. Um, those things people take for granted often, you know, and with all the violence going on, things that I've seen, you know, I can honestly say I can be thankful that I'm still here. And I've dodged several bullets, not literally, but, and then there are some situations where some neighborhoods were like really sketchy that I've lived in, where, you know, things could have happened. I could have been a bystander and, you know, gotten hurt, you know, but I'm still here, and I'm hoping to be here many more years. I just think it's sad, and this is on any level, you know, for anybody. I've seen people come and go, and I've seen people who just seem to never really mature. They seem to get worse, and I feel like with whatever's going on in the world, the trends that are going on in life is what is the indicator of how people are behaving. And so even in the workplace, I'm seeing how people sometimes they don't trust one another, so they feel like they got to be vindictive and do things behind the other person's back. And, so I've just been really like withdrawn from individuals because I really don't trust people, because of the behaviors, the things that they've done have indicated to me that I need to be on guard and stand clear of them. So, not to be mean, the reason why I distance myself from people is not to be mean. It's because people I've been around have been mean. So that is why I distance myself from them. So, with that being said, I just try to live the best way I can. And, I think it's good when people are sharing dialogue, when they can talk and they can rationalize. I think it's good when, you find women coming out and feeling empowered that they can talk about their problems and feel like they have some source of comfort, knowing that they're not the only one that has experienced some of these same issues. There's power in numbers, and I think it's good when you can have Black people who want to look back and find out who they are, and they investigate, they want to know, they read more, starting to learn to read more, about history and find facts, and that could be a hobby, that's good. And it opens up dialogue for conversation about who we are as people. And it might also cause healing, because people, when they've been told that they are useless and they're lazy and then they're no good and they're criminals, if you read about your history and of people and who they were and find out that it was nothing like that, and you don't come from people like that, then you're learning the truth, you know. And maybe that's the reason why there's so much negative sentiment about people of color, is because they really weren't all these negative things. And there's a lot of jealousy out there and envy, a lot of lying going on. So, women being able to work, find jobs, and being treated more equally in pay, those are all good things. Um, so hopefully we can go move in those directions. Also, people not feeling like they have to be married to somebody that looks just exactly their culture. If you meet somebody and they aren't from the same background, but they really do care about you, I say go for it. Somebody else will argue, oh, you need to stay with your race. I would think that's a problem if people are doing that just for that purpose alone. Um, because then that does sound like they're segregating themselves, but then there's fear too. So I am aware that there's a level of fear out there. People are afraid that people are just trying to get with people because they're um, not really in love with them. They're in love with the stereotypes, whatever they heard. I heard that this person, they do this, and I want to see, is it true? And so they really aren't in it to be in a relationship with you. They're in it to be, investigative, and you're an experiment. And I can get that fully. But hopefully it's more on a positive level, that people get together, not because, and vice versa. I don't want to be with this person because they're from my same culture, and I don't like them, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to be with a different culture. So you have that going on. That's going on a lot, unfortunately. And so I'm hoping that we move in a positive direction. But right now, the way things look, it doesn't look like it's going that way. But I am not the world, the whole world's ideology. I am me. And so, with that being said, have a good Sunday. Enjoy your Sunday. And hopefully, people will learn to take life in stride and not take it for granted. Thank you for listening. Bye.